Good morning, Bucknutters. It is February 3rd. Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Those of you that tuned in for the premium 15 minutes pregame discussions we had, you got your money's worth. Let's hope that doesn't get to the internet. Got a great show planned for you today. We are officially in the off season, so there'll be some different topics. We'll do more on roster prep and such. Recruiting, once again, takes center stage. Wouldn't you know, there's good timing because 24/7, kind of trying to put the most recent recruiting cycle behind them yesterday, came out with their final top 247 for the class of 2026. I'm going to let Garrick bring you the highlights and kind of the depth to it. But Ohio State finished with two 5 stars, Chris Henry and Sincere Johnson. Not too surprising. Garrick, your thought on how the class ended up ranked? It does look like their seek and destroy approach, though, has filled a lot of individual needs.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Ohio State finished as the nation's number 4 recruiting class in the country. And, you know, if you reflect before November, there was a lot of fan worry, angst, whatever you want to call it, that Ohio State wouldn't finish with another top 5 recruiting class. And yet they got, 7 commitments in November to fill out a pretty decent recruiting class in the end. And 2 of them ended up being in the top 175 prospects in the nation. And that's Jay Timmons, who came in as the number 47 prospect overall, the cornerback. That's a Florida State legacy that Ohio State ended up flipping. And then another one, everybody's favorite player that Dan always jokes that he secretly works for Bucknuts, Legend Bay, who finished as the number 100.
Thank you, Legend, and the family.
Yes. But like Dan said, there's 2 5 stars in the 2026 class for Ohio State, and that's Chris Henry Jr., 5-star wide receiver that's going to have a pretty great chance to start as an outside receiver opposite of Jeremiah Smith in the 2026 season, in my opinion. And then Sincere Johnson, that Mark's been gushing about forever, finishes as the number 2 linebacker in the country per 247 Sports' ranking and the top prospect in the state of Ohio, coming in as the number 25 prospect overall. I believe there's 6 in the top 100. So we've mentioned Henry, we mentioned Sincere Johnson. Sam Greer just missed 5-star status, comes in at the number 35 overall prospect, so 3 away from finishing as a 5-star, the number 6 offensive tackle in the country and the second-ranked prospect in Ohio. We mentioned JT.
I want you to clarify. Let's clarify that because not everyone remembers this. 24/7 Sports does 32 5-stars because there are 32 NFL teams.
Yep.
Okay, so what they're saying is they're projecting the first-round draft pick. I don't know if it's that linear, but the reason they cap it at 32 is there are 32 NFL teams. I'm sorry, Gary, go ahead.
Yep. Nope. That's a good addition to know.
Question: do they have 32 4-stars to make it like a second round? And then
No.
Okay, because that would be impossible because you're doing national rankings.
There's
so many kids. Yeah. Okay. Just clarify that for everybody. So it isn't like 3-4 rounds.
You can't go to 96 and project them as a third rounder.
That's what I was going to get to. Yeah.
So 400 kids in the country, I believe I have that number correct, are 4 stars or better, a.k.a. they're what you call blue chip prospects. They're either 4-star prospects or better. So 400 kids in the country are either a 4-star or better. And of Ohio State's 28 scholarship signees that they recorded, 18 of those ended up being 4-star prospects. Anyway, Jay Timmons, we already discussed, number 47 overall. He's the number 5th cornerback in the country. Tim Walton flipped him late in the cycle from Florida State. One of the biggest risers in the latest update, in the final update, was Jaquin Guilford, who went from number 164 overall to 75th overall. Saw him a lot at the Navy All-American Bowl, make contested catch after contested catch, and really kind of burned some defensive backs with a smooth route running, and I think he really did himself a lot of favors there. So he's a top 75 player in the country. And then the last one in your top 100 and the 6th for Ohio State is Kerry Wilder. We've talked about him at length, of course, over the past few months. He comes in as the number 81 prospect in the country, defensive end that has a chance to crack the 2 deep, in my opinion, his first year on campus in Columbus. And He had a great senior year to back it up. 91 total tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 26 quarterback hurries, 5 forced fumbles, everything you want out of a premier defensive end. He's going to have the chance to do it all. And to kind of put a bow on the final rankings discussion, this is the 7th straight year that Ohio State has finished with a top 5 recruiting class in the country. You have to go back all the way to the 2019 recruiting cycle to find a time where Ohio State finished outside the top 5, and they finished 14th that year. So 7th straight year for Ohio State finishing with the top 5 recruiting class. We'll see if they make it to 8 with their newfound recruiting strategy of, like we kind of discussed in a previous show, of paying, at least significantly paying 10 to 15 guys. So we'll see if that gets them enough to qualify for a top 5 recruiting class again. But yeah, I think when you look at this class overall, 28 guys, 18 of them 4-star prospects or better, and then you got some really interesting developmental guys that didn't quite crack blue chip status. I think there's a lot to be excited about from the 2026 recruiting class as far as Ohio State's concerned.
I'm looking at the rankings here, the final rankings, just so everyone knows. Let's go top 10. Because the Big Ten, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, Ohio State finished first in the Big Ten. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Nope.
It's 2026. USC is number 1. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, Notre Dame. Number 6, Georgia. Number 7, Texas. Number 8, Tennessee. Number 9, Miami. Number 10, Texas A&M, for example. Then LSU, Michigan. So, by the way, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The teams, those sound like some pretty traditional powerhouses that are recruiting at a very high level. So, very interesting stuff. Garrick, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but is there a guy in the class you haven't mentioned that you think is being undervalued, that you really like, that you've kind of caught your fancy during the process?
Yeah, I don't know if he's underrated per se, because this is still a very prestigious ranking and not a lot of kids are ranked the number 146 prospect in the country. But if there was someone that I thought was a little underrated by this class, I should say, by our rankings, I would say Blaine Bradford, who came in as the 7th highest ranked recruit for Ohio State, finished as the number 146 prospect overall, like we said. We don't have control over rankings input. I would guess that he probably plateaued around that area because maybe there's some worry about the projection of how much more weight he can put on. Right now he's 6'1", he's 207 pounds. How much more can you really add to that frame? I'm sure Mick Mariotti will turn him into a finely tuned machine within 3 months here. But when you think about Blaine Bradford, I think of a guy that hits like a truck, that is a premier run defending safety, that shows excellent coverage skills. I think he's a guy, before the transfer additions of Terry Moore and Earl Little Jr., I thought that this was going to be a guy in contention to start year 1. Not quite the case anymore now that those 2 transfer portal guys have come in my opinion, but I think he certainly has a hell of a chance to crack the 2 deep. I think he has a good chance to carve out a role for himself where he plays 10 snaps a game. You want to knock on wood that everyone stays healthy and nobody sustains any serious injuries, but this is a guy that I think if you ask to contribute right away, if someone were to go down or if their performance were to take an unexpected nosedive, I think this is a high ceiling guy that you come in and he establishes a role for himself. I mean, Jalen McClain did something very similar, established a role for himself as a young guy and then kind of took over that starting spot eventually. So I will stand on an island and sing my praises for Blaine Bradford. I think that this is a guy that they were pounding the proverbial tables for in the room. They thought of him as one of the best safeties in the country, and they ended up getting him. And I know he comes in at number 146 or 148, I should say, 247, 146.
Bradford's also interesting because we all remember the Buckeyes also heavily recruited a guy named Braylon Womack out of Mississippi. And I think Womack and Bradford were considered in this era the type of safety you go after. And Garrick's talked about your top 10 or 15 guys they focus on and you drill down on. I think they had to kind of make a call on Bradford versus Womack. Personally, I think that's what happened if I'm reading the tea leaves. And I think they chose Bradford to be a long-term investment. And, Womack ended up at Mississippi State. I'm not going to say that means it's a W for Ohio State, but it certainly doesn't mean it's an L. So I think that's a great call. I think the guy that is going to be the fan favorite, and Dave Biddle did nothing to damage that yesterday by posting the quote that Ryan Day said of Legend Bay, that he is a poor man's Tyreek Hill. We used to say that, like we used to make fun of our friends. Like I had a basketball player, if we go play hoops, and I told my friend was a poverty-stricken John Bagley, who wasn't good anyway. But that a poverty-stricken Tyreek Hill would be an elite player. And this has kind of been a theme that's developing, is that I think we're seeing Ohio State is going to try to exploit the middle of the field with speed and a little more step back slot type guys next year. We've talked about this. They were dominant with like the big classic number one receiver types, and they could run the ball real well. Not sure they were that explosive in the middle of the field, Mark. We talked about the guys who put fear into you, where you miss one tackle and that's off to the races. The player I use as an example Paris Campbell led the team in receptions, and what was his average target? Because he kept taking that little that little handoff forward that's technically a pass. Wouldn't you think that's the key to improving the offense as you've seen it?
He certainly is a tool belt guy where you put him in there and he can do things the other guys can't. Like you can't have a big room full of 5'9" receivers. So he's one of the guys that you're going to use over the middle, like you said. He is like a Percy Harvin, Tyreek Hill. I wouldn't even say he's a poor man's. He can scoot. He would be someone that if I'm a defensive coordinator, he doesn't worry about he's going to come off the ball and block you. No. You got to be worried to cover this guy and not let him get over the top. I think when you put him in the backfield, you get him away from coverage, so you can do a lot more with them. And I saw him listed at running back a bunch, and I'm like, even on our depth chart, I think I saw him listed at running back. So I'll be interested to see where he actually does make his statement, or where they start to use him at, if it's slot. And we haven't had a guy quite like this. When you say Paris Johnson, he was more of a straight line guy.
I get that, but
this guy is stop and go, left and right, joystick, run backwards 3 yards, then go forward. He's got some stuff to him, and that's a great comment, Tyreek Hill. I try not to make those comparisons, and I end up doing it all the time because these kids look so good in high school, but he's one that I am very excited about.
Think about it. It's not like we did it. Ryan Day did it. You know what I'm saying? So I do think sometimes we make too much of what people say in front of a microphone. But for example,
with Bill Kurlick and I, we used to talk off camera all the time about let's not anoint everyone the second coming of Christ. A lot of these kids coming to Ohio State will be that, and they will be first-round picks. But when they sign 30 of them, we can't assign Christ-like abilities. I'm sorry to be sacrilegious like that, but we can't do that for every player. And we have to try to have an evenness and a calmness. But players like this do get you excited.
Tyreek Hill, if there was a human being that actually could run across water, to use your religious reference, he might be the guy. He is. You're talking about the planet. Like, this is what I say about the NFL. Like, Dave and I had this. I was messing with Dave yesterday, and I was trying to get him to choose between Jamar Chase and Jackson Smith and Jigba, just testing his allegiances. And he went with his Bengals allegiances. But it's like, it's not a slight to tell someone, oh, you're the second best receiver on the planet. Okay? People were like, oh, I can't believe you said that about Chase. It's like, it's a big planet. There's a lot of people playing football. He's the second best. That's not a slight. So these are some lofty dudes. I got a question for you, Garrick, about recruiting, which is kind of funny. It came up here. It's funny to me. Because we're talking there's a lot of talk about running back because not necessarily just for next year, some minor offseason shoulder surgeries. It was minor because it wasn't done to me. Shoulder surgery to Bo Jackson and our backup, whose name escapes me, unbelievable.
Isaiah West.
Good Lord, it's early. And then they brought in the Florida running back, Jacoby Jackson. So there's also talk about recruiting running backs. And David Gabriel Georges has clearly become the man of the hour because, come on, Spell, the other, let's say, there's two elite backs that everyone kind of they're kind of above the fray. Come on, Spell, who was once committed to Penn State, committed to Georgia yesterday. I guess I haven't followed that as closely as I should have. That kind of surprised me. But there's a question up here. What about David Gabriel Georges? And I'll tell you guys something comical. Two comical things. One, actually, we'll do this first comical thing today. Denison basketball yesterday received a commitment from Baylor center Ezra Sixto. Not a running back, but the center. Maybe I can get my son to call down and put in a good word with David Gabriel Georges. Fair to assume, as we look here, any movement on David Gabriel Georges is he an Ohio State lean? Do you feel the come on Spell commitment has anything to do with affecting his outcome, Garrick?
No, I don't. And that has more to do with, I think, where things were headed with come on Spell in Ohio State than I think it has anything to do with David Gabriel Georges. And by that, I mean, I don't really know if Ohio State was kind of prioritizing isn't the right word, but counting on is a better word to him to be a backup option if things didn't go well with David Gabriel Georges. I think the writing had been kind of on the wall for months that he was looking at other schools between Notre Dame, Georgia, Penn State. Those schools were getting a lot more interest from come on than Ohio State was at the time. When I asked around about running backs and kind of maybe digged into, well, if things don't work out with DGG, who might be number two? And I was expecting to hear come on Spell. And recently when I had that conversation, that name never came up.
But come on Spell is a number two for anybody. He's like an all in or not.
No, I mean, yeah, it is kind of strange to be talking about the number one ranked running back in the country as a backup option, but that just speaks to how highly Ohio State values David Gabriel Georges. I see his priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Ohio State's 2027 recruiting class. Is there an update? Well, Carlos Lachlan visited him out on the recruiting trail recently. That's not a whole lot of news there because he's obviously a priority target. And here's what I'll say. I think that Ohio State is going to be very aggressive and very competitive in this recruitment. They're in it to win it. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be reckless if things get to that level, but they are certainly in it to win it. If Bill always liked to do the column, if I had to predict right now. So if I had to predict right now, I would guess that David Gabriel Georges does end up at Ohio State in this class. That's certainly not a given by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say this. Georgia was a challenger for David Gabriel Georges, and come on Spell going to the Bulldogs certainly helps Ohio State there. But the biggest challenger to Ohio State was Tennessee. So I think that at this moment, this is a strong Tennessee versus Ohio State race. Carlos Lachlan has been recruiting David Gabriel Georges guys since he was in like 9th grade, or maybe even earlier than that. He was one of, if not the first person to offer him. So Ohio State has a lot of relationships here. They've been on this young man forever. And, yeah, gun to my head, I would say that they end up getting him. But obviously I'm not confident enough in that to put in a crystal ball for him. But I like where they're headed at right now. Let's see where it goes in the summer when he takes an official visit.
And there are guys who in every recruiting class just tend to be the jewels. They don't always get them. But there are guys who we just end up talking about a ton because we know they want them. Everybody knows they want him, and there are those few guys in DGG, barring unforeseen, developments, will be in the mix till the end. I have to tell a quick digression, quick funny story. I don't know if you guys have ever been noticed out in public and recognized, but I got to say what up to my friends Brandon and Jessica. First time I've been recognized when I was wearing a robe. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but trust me, it was alarming, and more people watch the show than you think, and in places you wouldn't expect. And so I realized that.
I feel like you were at a hotel, you lost your room key, you go down on your robe to get another room key. I mean, I don't even know what this situation could be when you're in a robe and fans are there.
We're not. That's partly of the reason I said it was for that innuendo and reason, and that has happened to me before in Las Vegas, and I may or may not have seen. I didn't want to go into that one. Suge Knight was in the lobby, but that's going to sound unreal. All right, let's go to the man of the hour, and that is Davis Seaman. If you guys read the boarding house yesterday, you know that we had an item about like generally considered the 6 top offensive linemen in Ohio right now in the 26-27 classes. 5 of the 6 are committed to Ohio State. 1 has an offer and is not committed, and it's a lacrosse player from Bishop Waterson or an offensive lineman from Bishop Waterson named Davis Seaman. I have watched the tape. I'm impressed. Mark, please take it away.
Yeah, we're going to go back a couple weeks or months here to the end of the season when they were playing Tri-Valley, Bishop Waterson, that is, and we got to check him out live. He's a different type of offensive lineman. You can see the flat belly right there. If he wanted to play tight end, he could. If he wanted to play center, I think he could. I think there's a lot of versatility in the way he moves. You're going to see him pull and get up to the next level. The pictures do his body justice. You see the punch. He is a heavy-handed kid. We're going to see a couple great punches. I went with the footage I shot first. You see a couple pancakes. We're going to see him out running in space. You see him right there. You see what an athlete he is.
He's a dancer.
Yeah, dancing bear, they say. There's the heavy hands. He's a finisher. You're going to see him drive guys and run to the whistle. He's not a big belly guy. He has room to put on more weight if you want. But if he needed to play any position on the O-line, this could be your guy. That's the type of athlete we're dealing with here. I think, like Garrick said, we talked a couple weeks ago, this could be one of the next guys to commit. He's been crystal balled for a while. That was a really good punch there. He's one of these guys, when you watch the film, he's looking to get somebody, like he's hunting, he wants to take a pelt on every play, whether it's a pancake or
echo of the whistle. Yeah.
And then I think every time we recruit someone, that characteristic is on tape. And I don't know how much Dan's going to give away for free again here, but the pass protection.
You got caught up there.
Yeah. It's fun when they're good and they're smashing dudes. The pass protection part of it is something we know Ohio State highly values. I mean, we don't give up sacks if at all possible until we get to the end of the year this year, but he fits like a guy that could move his feet and pick up a guy off the edge. So he probably starts off at tackle because of his elite feet and his pass protection, but really his size would dictate that he could go anywhere.
I almost think he looks to me like a center.
I would disagree with Mark, and I think he'll end up in an interior, but we can make a gentleman's wager on that.
I don't have him pegged as anywhere. Like I started off by saying tight end to center, that's the first thing that jumps off the tape. But he has the feet that a tackle has, and he could pass protect with someone with jets in their shoes. That's why I say, you know what? They usually give those guys a chance out there. Mm-hmm. He does not have the long body, though. That would probably be Garrick's argument back at me. Like, listen, we're going to have guys with longer arms, bigger levers that can do that. Let's use his athletic ability inside at center where he's running up to get linebackers.
I don't want to ask a dumb. Do you know what kind of offense Waterson runs?
Balanced. Yeah. Okay. They have a great coaching staff. Their quarterback's headed to Miami of Ohio. They threw the ball. They ran the ball.
Great.
So it was it was very college-esque.
I always ask this after I had the discussion with Tyler Bowen, Justin Fry about Austin Searveld, because he said this was when Searveld was a freshman. I don't remember where we were. He told me Searveld showed up at Ohio State, basically their best run blocker, but had no experience pass blocking because it was Lakota East, I believe, ran some Naval Academy,
Yeah.
Hand it to the running back, play rugby offense.
It's too bad. John Nitna, the former quarterback of the Bengals, Kitna. Yeah. I have to pronounce the N for some reason, but he's now the quarterback there, which has drastically changed that offense. His son was a quarterback there for a couple of years.
Kitna. Yeah.
Yeah, they threw the heck out of it. They have a nice quarterback there right now that's throwing the heck out of it. So he was a couple of years too late. But I don't mind a lineman who comes out with that pedigree of just grind it out, flat back, come off the ball, and punch you in the face,
Certainly rather that than someone who came from the run and shoot and was just always pass.
And someone who's, the other problem with offensive linemen is there are linemen that come into college football who have never put their hand down in the 3-point stance. they have played out of a 2-point their entire career. And boy, I know a Big Ten head coach that told me, he goes, this whole game went to hell when linemen started running sideways at the snap of the ball, meaning they started zoning and taking those big bucket steps. And he goes, fire off the ball and maul someone's face. That was his brand, of course. But yeah, you don't want that soft feel.
I blame Seaman. Their defensive line was so good that everyone started going outside. They were like, we can't block them. We got to go to the screen game. And then it all went down from there. Of course, Nick Saban at fault again. All right.
Really quickly, you got a note on Davis Seaman. He also was a late entrant to the Navy All-American Bowl down in Texas. Saw him down there as an underclassman.
Oh, great.
I was really interested in seeing how he would perform against some of the more elite prospects, both in the 2026 and 2027 class. He was a late addition to the event because I think he got invited December 26th, like a week or two before the event. And he looked like he was right on the same playing field as all those guys. He performed well. He received constant praise from some of the 247 scouting team that was watching him take reps. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a nice little rankings boost whenever they re-rank the 2027 class. Not sure when that's coming. They just finished 26, obviously. But I did get another chance to catch up with Davis, too, and he said his primary schools right now are Ohio State, Auburn, and Penn State. Those are the three schools that are making a push for him right now. But frankly, I'd be surprised.
Come on.
Dan, could you let me get to the point?
Come on. Look, Columbus.
He's spoiling it for everybody. But, yeah, I would be surprised if
it would be a serious upset if he's not a Buckeye.
Oh, it would be a massive upset.
Come on.
But, yeah, he gave a little chuckle and kind of did the same thing to what Dan's doing right now. Like, yeah, Ohio State's probably still in the lead. Tyler Bowen just visited him. I know that Davis Seaman will be back on campus for a spring visit too. I mean, it's not a very far drive from where he lives to Ohio State's campus. But
Mark, are there any former Buckeyes on the Waterson staff? Is that possible? Didn't Radzinski go there?
Ulanake,
another one.
Yeah, I think there's a Ulanake. There's
Ulanake.
The quarterback's uncle, I think.
Stanley Jackson,
guys,
maybe.
Yeah, there's a couple. I'm trying to blank on the quarterback's name.
If you're involved in youth sports, like in the Columbus area, every other weekend you're like, that guy looks familiar, and you look in the stands and it's a Buckeye dad or something like that. They're all there, and their kids are usually really good. We've gone against them and lost to a lot of them. Beat a few along the way. All right, let's see if we have any good questions here. Otherwise, we want to get out of here. Belisari? I don't.
Belisari. I was just pulling it up. There you go. Yep.
Oh, it is Belisari.
Yeah.
Excellent.
There's a handful of Buckeye fathers on that staff.
Look at Neil OSU. I talk to Davis Seaman periodically in the gym. I'm reading this blind, so if this turns bad, blame Neil OSU. I did not screen this. He keeps it pretty close to the vest, but his family are huge Ohio State fans. He said his recruitment blew up after the All-American Bowl performance.
Yep.
It blew up, and it's too late for everybody else because he was not born. He's a Columbus native, and who would want to spend their senior year committed somewhere else living in Columbus? I know, not Davis. And like I said, I love the fact that he's a lacrosse player. When you hear a lineman plays another sport, it's like hearing the lineman when he's like a great power forward. Keep this in mind. The best defensive rebounder I've ever seen in AAU in Ohio was the tight end who's now on the Texans. Trivia? Come on. You don't know what it is? Who was the tight end on the Texans that played glorified safety and committed on a truck?
Wow.
Cole.
Mr. Ohio from Lexington.
Yep.
Yeah, Cade Stover.
Cade Stover. Why do I call him Cole? Cade Stover.
Yeah, there were a couple Stovers, yeah.
The best freshman basketball player in the state one year was Jack Sawyer. Sonny Styles won a state championship alongside Devin Royal and playing basketball. By the way, could every mock draft not have Sonny Styles to the Cowboys? I'm not kidding you. Go look this up. There has never been a player mocked to one place more than Sonny Styles to the Cowboys. I may have a jersey before he gets to the podium if that happens, but we'll go from there. All right, Cade Stover. That's my fault. I'm bad with names today. Cade Stover Best athlete ever to come out of Mansfield.
He was
You ever,
Mr.
get a chance,
Football.
you ever get a chance to talk to Cade Stover?
Yeah, you know what? And
He's got a man's voice.
Yeah, as good on offense as he was on defense. And you're right, he committed on it. The farm tractor, works the farm every day, bales hay. I mean, he is country strong. Yeah.
I'm just talking defensive rebounding. He'd go up with those elbows out. And after the first quarter, people were like, you can have it. You take that. I prefer to leave with my orbital bone intact. And Jack Sawyer was incredible. The first time I ever saw Sonny Styles was at Flying to the Hoop because they were starting a power forward named Alex Styles. And I'm like, oh, they're starting like the senior linebacker to go in there and get rebounds. And then they announced it. And it's like, freshman. It's like, oh, God. Starting in basketball as a freshman, just a freak.
Little known Cliff Clavin fact, Antonio Gates is the best basketball player ever. He was at the end of the 90s at Kent State, and he never played football there. I'm sure most people know that. I was the only tight end Kent State in the 90s that didn't go to the NFL. I got there at 92, and I started in front of O.J. Santiago briefly and Jason
O.J.
Gavaz.
Santiago from the Falcons.
Yes, and he invented the dirty bird, so my friends let me know that flapping dirty bird was an invention there. And then Jason Gavazda was the tight end after him, and he went to the Ravens, got hurt in the preseason, and ended up with a Super Bowl ring at the end of the year because they won the Super Bowl with Ray Lewis. And he played for a bunch of other teams, but you're looking at the only guy that couldn't achieve NFL glory. So, yeah, a lot of great tight ends coming out of Kent State. That was right in my wheelhouse, so I was definitely going to comment on it.
Only guy with no NFL glory yet. Mark sent Garrick and I a picture of him in a Super Bowl winning locker room this morning. So who else can say they've done that? I know I can't. I've been in some locker rooms, though. I told you guys, did I tell you this? I told you my Grady Jackson story, right? About his sweat. I never told you that one?
I touched it. It was good. Yeah,
oh,
that was great.
That shirt was burned in effigy. All right. We got a little sidetracked there. 32 minutes. That is our cutoff. We appreciate you guys stopping by. We'll be back on Thursday with more recruiting information. Have a good one, Nutters.